Can the existence of God be proven through pure reason alone? Delve into the intriguing realm of the ontological argument, a philosophical proposition that seeks to prove God's existence through logical reasoning. The ontological argument is a profound philosophical idea often attributed to Anselm of Canterbury in the 11th century, but its roots can be traced back to ancient Greek philosophy. In essence, it is a conceptual exploration of the nature and existence of God. The argument starts with the premise that it is possible a maximally great being, or God, exists. If one can conceive of such a being, then this being could potentially exist in some possible world. Now, a maximally great being wouldn't just exist in one possible world. It would exist in every possible world, because if it didn't, it wouldn't be maximally great. It follows then, if a maximally great being exists in every possible world, then it must exist in the actual world we live in. From this logic, we infer that a maximally great being exists in the actual world, thus a maximally great being, or God, exists. These steps form the crux of the ontological argument. The essence of this argument is not whether God exists, but rather, it questions if the existence of God is possible. The atheist stance would have to be that it is logically impossible for God to exist. As William Lane Craig states, most philosophers would agree that if God's existence is even possible, then he must exist. So the whole question is God's existence possible? The atheist has to maintain that it's impossible that God exists. Thus, the ontological argument puts the atheist in a very awkward position. The atheist must deny, not merely that God exists, he must maintain that it is logically impossible that God exists. And that is certainly a radical claim that would require great justification. Indeed, it is now shown to be an impossible task for atheists. In 2016, two German mathematicians created a program to test Fitting's and Anderson's variant of the ontological argument and found it to be logically valid. In their paper, Types, Tableaus and Gödel's God, they state, Fitting's and Anderson's variant of the ontological argument is verified and confirmed. In short, God's existence is now shown to be logically consistent and thus logically possible, thus confirming the necessary premise of the ontological argument. Namely, that it is possible for God to exist. Moreover, atheists, in their appeal to an infinity of other universes and/or other possible worlds, to try to explain away the fine-tuning of this universe, have, unwittingly, conceded that it is logically possible for God to exist. In short, their appeal to an infinity of other possible worlds actually strengthens the ontological argument. As the article Why Most Atheists Believe in Pink Unicorns explains, there theoretically could be multiple universes, and there theoretically could be pink unicorns. However, there is a more substantial problem for the atheist if he wants to believe in them, and he wants to remain an atheist. Since, as I said, anything can happen in the realm of infinities, one of those possibilities is the production of a being of vast intelligence and power. Such a being would be as a god to those like us, and could perhaps breach the boundaries of the multiverse to in fact be a god to this universe. This being might even have the means to create its own universe and embody the very description of the God of Christianity, or any other religion that the atheist otherwise rejects. It seems the atheist, in affirming the multiverse in order to avoid the problem of fine-tuning, finds himself on the horns of a dilemma. In short, the atheist, in trying to avoid God with his appeal to a multiverse, unwittingly ends up affirming that it is logically possible for God to exist in some possible world, and thus inadvertently affirming the necessary premise of the ontological argument. Namely, that it is logically possible that God exists in some possible world. One final note. The ontological argument can even be refined to support the existence of a triune God. If we consider maximally great love, a single entity cannot experience this. Love involves more than one person. Love involves a relationship, therefore, a maximally great being must exist in more than one person. In the video titled Abdu Murray AMP 2016, Abdu Murray, a former Muslim, holds that because of the characteristic of maximally great love, this refinement of the ontological argument for the triune God is devastating to the Muslim and Jewish conception of God as existing as just one person. In short, it is impossible for maximally great love to exist in just one person. In conclusion, the ontological argument presents a compelling case for the existence of God, not just as a possibility but as a logical necessity. And it also, because of the property of maximally great love, strongly supports the Christian's contention that God must exist as more than one person, as a Trinity. The ontological argument directly challenges atheism by turning the question of God's existence into a question of logical possibility, and requiring the atheist to provide logical justification for his unbelief. And the argument also directly challenges other monotheistic religions, which hold that God exists as just one person. Thus, the ontological argument turns out to offer a fairly compelling case against atheism in general, and even surprisingly, ends up offering a fairly compelling case for Christianity in particular.